Serious, what is the most unexplainable thing you've ever witnessed? After my cat of 10 years died in December, I would hear him meowing. Usually I could just pass it off as thinking too much about him. We used to have a thing where we'd talk back and forth to each other. He'd meow and I'd call back. Clyde, he'd call again. I'd say, Clyde, then he'd run up to me and we'd cuddle. One day I walked outside and I heard him, as if he was sitting 10 feet away. Following right after, I heard my own voice calling from far off. Clyde the meow and my voice repeated a few more times. It was extremely nerve-wracking. When it stopped I just turned around and went back inside. I don't hear him meowing much anymore. My friends and I had just been to a few nightclubs last year and we were walking home past a shop. It was about 5 AM and the sun was coming up. By the shop we could see a man sitting against the wall with what looked like a white bag of chips. We threw nothing off it and kept walking. Then suddenly the bag of chips started moving and started flying away. It turns out this super drunk guy was just sitting there casually stroking a motherfucking seagull. How he done that I will never know. Seagull whisperer. The house I grew up in was built by my great grandmother, who died in the house. No one in my family, including me, really believes in ghosts, but this one had us scratching our heads. When I was about 8, my mom randomly lost her wedding ring. She had no memory of taking it off, but lo and behold, it was just gone. I remember searching for it with her for months. After a while, she just sort of gave up and figured it was gone forever. A year later, I brought up the missing ring again and jokingly said, what if great grandma took it? My mom then looked up to the sky and half kidding said, you'd better give it back. About an hour later, my dad comes home from work and says, look what I found in the driveway. Boom. Wedding ring. A few years ago I was on a road trip driving from Florida to Kentucky. We were driving straight through, so it was around 3 AM and we were getting close to Atlanta. There was a group of 4 box trucks and 1 van. You could tell that these 5 vehicles were traveling together. Driving them were these 5 skeezy looking men. What caught our attention first was the fact that they were all driving pretty erratically, swerving and hard correcting themselves, constantly tapping their brakes, etc. What was weird was that the box trucks wouldn't let anyone on either side or directly in front of the van. This ended up making it pretty difficult to pass them. Plus it's 3 AM and we're just trying to stay awake, so this was relatively entertaining. So we kept pace with them for a while. The weirdest part to me was their braking. It was like all 5 of them had Parkinson's and didn't realize their foot was hovering over the brake. It was a goddamn light show. They knew when cops were going to be on the side of the road and they would slow way down below the speed limit when passing them. Eventually, their crazy driving started getting a little too dangerous. We knew what was up. By this point, we had been driving near them for at least an hour or so. But the closer we got to Atlanta, the more cars were on the road and they almost ran a few off the road. So, I called the cops. Since we were on the interstate, they had to keep switching us to the next county over every few minutes. While I was on the phone with them though, one of the drivers saw me on the phone and looking in their direction. It was almost as if he knew what I was doing. I was legitimately scared at that moment. Frick, this crazy motherfucker is going to drive us off the road for breaking up their sketchy butt box truck motorpool, and this is how I die. No cops ever came. We averted their crazy driving. We never saw what was in that van. And they all 5 got off at the same exit in the middle of nowhere. I definitely wish I would have followed them solely out of curiosity. It may not seem that sketchy to you, but it was freaking weird in real life. When I was in high school, my grandmother succumbed to cancer. At the funeral, my cousin and aunt sang Temporary Home by Carrie Underwood. It was my first time hearing the song, because I never really enjoyed country music. Well, that night I was sitting around a campfire with my brother and best friend when my girlfriend called to tell me she had arrived. Her first words to me were, why is your ringback Temporary Home by Carrie Underwood? I had her repeat it again and then just hung up the phone. My ringback tone at the time was No Sleep by Wiz Khalifa, which I had not changed for months. I do not really believe in the supernatural, nor do I wholeheartedly believe in coincidence. It has been something I could never explain. My deceased friend claimed his house was on an Indian burial ground and was haunted. I stayed over one night. We all, 3 of us and the dog, slept in the living room and nobody nor nothing, nor no more animals were in the house. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of someone loudly running up and down the basement stairs. I look over and my two friends are passed out. I look for the dog and it's right beside my friend looking terrified as crap. I was convinced his house is haunted after that. Me and my little brother were home alone playing Super Smash and we heard my little sister say, "Hey, we're over here from the closet," but we were freaking home alone. We went and checked it out and yup, we were still alone. Still freaks us out and we have no explanation. Don't worry, it was probably just a demon. I've heard they take on the voice appearance of family members or small children. Nothing to worry about, mate. I was driving home from work one night at around 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I live on a peninsula, so there is only one main road. It's kind of a typical suburban area with small stores and churches. As I'm coming up on the Baptist church, I see something odd over the steeple. It was a very large airship with a light on top that blinked red, green and blue. The light was flashing at irregular intervals and was probably about 100 feet above the church. It was long with vents protruding off the side where spotlights illuminated the grass below. The airship made no discernible sound. I slowed my car to a dead stop staring at this thing. I immediately thought to take a picture, but my crappy BlackBerry only had like a 5MP camera and no flash. I had a nice DSLR in the trunk, so I got out of my car to get it. Still stopped in the middle of the road, but as soon as I opened my car door the thing flew off with incredible speed. I jumped back into my car and did a U-turn to follow it, but it vanished into the night sky. I have no explanation to what it was. It didn't have wings like a plane. It wasn't a helicopter. It wasn't a blimp. The only logical conclusion I could draw was that I hallucinated the thing. I had not been drinking and I don't do drugs and I haven't had any hallucinations before after this. This isn't even a case of me seeing something weird in the night sky and trying to figure out what it was. This thing was right in front of me, barely 200 feet in the air, massive and in my face. I spent weeks after my sighting googling UFO my area, in as many iterations as I could think of, but never found anyone else who saw it. One day my parents decide to trace the family name. We visit a village we knew ancestors came from. While visiting the graveyard we find one. Nobody is around 1 second. The next this old man appears. Apparently he is related to. Tells us we should come for a cup of tea at his house. Gives us directions and name of place. My dad asks if the local manor house is still open to the public. He said yes. Has been since he remembers. All of the directions he gives us used landmarks that haven't existed for decades. The manor house is private. Has been for years. Owner told us he has no idea where his dude's house is. Ghost or random senile ninja? I was house sitting for my aunt and uncle about 8 years ago, and their house is in a big subdivision, but at the time it was one of the only houses in the new phase, so it was a good mile from the other parts of the development. Anyway, it was a typical newish home. 3 bedrooms, garage, screened-in pool in the back, skylights, etc. I slept on the pull-out couch in the living room so I could watch the big TV while I was going to bed. Anyway, on the second night I hear this thudding sound coming from what sounded like the garage. So I went in to check it out and make sure nothing had fallen over or anything. Anyway, I didn't find anything. I go my back down and eventually fall asleep. I wake up to a silver polish infomercial like 2 hours later, and I roll over to grab the remote, and as I roll over I glance up at the skylight that's right above me and I see this outline of a figure staring down at me, and like 2 seconds later panic sets in. I run into my aunt and uncle's bedroom, grab his gun from the top of his closet, and call the police. Around 10 minutes, seemed like hours. Later the police arrive and find my uncle's ladder set up on the side of the house, but no signs of whoever was on the roof. Not really paranormal or anything, but we never found out who was up there or why. Well, crossing off Skylight from my list of future home dream features. I was sitting in the room nearest the backyard, on my laptop, heard a knock on the sliding glass door, and looked up to see who was there. I saw a very long hand pull away. The fingers must have been about a foot long, dark purplish grey in color. I got up from the couch and saw a short figure running away. It disappeared before my eyes. What in the almighty frick? Very shortly after breaking up with my then girlfriend, I attended by myself a college basketball game at a major D1 university because I was feeling a bit bummed out and wanted to get my mind off things. I told exactly 0 people I would be attending this game. because I decided to do it on a whim. The opponent was not very good, so there were many empty seats. I decided to sit in the upper deck in an arena that holds nearly 16,000 people. There were at most 20 other people in the upper deck, and plenty of open seats in the lower bowl. As the game is starting, a random man approaches me and says, "You're in my seat." Okay, that's weird. I'm literally the only person in this section and there are thousands of empty seats up here, but whatever buddy, have your seat. As I'm getting up to choose some other random seat to sit in, the PA announcer comes on and says that a car in the parking lot has left its lights on. It's my car. This is pretty strange. This is not some rinky-dink high school basketball game. This is a game in front of several thousand people at a very large, prominent school. In the many hundreds of games I have attended here, never have I heard the PA announcer come on to tell someone they left their lights on. So I walk out to my car and my lights are not on. Maybe the battery died? Nope. Starts right up. As I'm getting out of my car, I get a text from a phone number that I do not know that says, "I'm watching you, the zookeeper." Why did that guy ask me to move from that seat? There was no way he bought that ticket. There were infinitely many better seats available. Why did the PA announcer come on at the exact moment the guy approached me? Who told them my lights were on when they weren't? Who the frick is the zookeeper? What the heck is going on here? Strangest thing that has ever happened in my lifetime. When I was in college we rented an apartment that was built in the 1700s. Salem, MA. For the record, I don't believe in ghosts at all, but I can't explain how this, or a few other things that took place there occurred. The apartment had one bathroom that had two entrances, one off the hall stairs and one off my bedroom. One night we were having a small party with maybe 10 to 15 guests. Someone went up to use the bathroom and came back saying it was locked and there was no response to knocking. We all looked around and no one was missing. Curious, I went up and started pounding on the hall door. Nothing. I went around through my room and that entrance was also locked and further knocking produced nothing but silence. Starting to freak out a little, my roommates and I had a quick discussion and decided to kick down the door. Being an old house, it wasn't that hard and we poured into the bathroom expecting to find someone passed out, but it was completely empty, locked from the inside, with two deadbolts. The one window had long been painted shut. The hair on my arms is standing straight up right now typing this as it was then. How do not 1, but 2, slide deadbolts lock themselves from inside an empty room? A ton of other bizarre things happened there and we finally moved after a mysterious fire that the fire marshals were completely unable to determine a cause. A couple of years ago I was listening to music on my iPod in my bedroom. I got up to use the toilet and left the iPod on my bed. I returned to my room a couple of minutes later to find my iPod gone. I searched my entire room for it and couldn't find it anywhere. I went down to the kitchen, which is at the other side of the house, to find my iPod standing perfectly upright in the center of the kitchen table. No freaking clue how it got there or even how it was standing up. It was the second gen iPod Touch. Nobody had been home. All the doors were locked and I hadn't gone to the kitchen before that. To this day it still amazes me how the heck it got there. Back in high school I was always going to concerts. I was at a Metallica concert and went out to smoke a cigarette and these two guys my age walked up to me and said they knew me, that we went to the same school, and then proceeded to rattle off the last 6 or 7 concerts I had gone to, saying that they had seen me at them. I had never seen these guys before, ever, but they knew my name, first and last. Next day I walk into school and these two guys are sitting in the hall across from the door. I said hi as I walked by and the bell rang, and they just sat there. Went to class and never saw either one of them ever again. I asked around if anyone knew these two and everyone said no. They weren't in the yearbook either. I broke physics once in college. We were doing a liquid-liquid separation in a huge car column. Okay, it's just a really tall tube with 2 outlet ports at the top, on top of each other. We pumped too much water into the column and it started spewing out of one of the outlets like you'd expect, except the water was coming out of the top hole, not the bottom one. So we had water going up a tube, passing right by an open hole, going an additional 5 cm or so, then shooting out the other hole. We had no idea what was happening and just started at it while it flooded the room. Couldn't repeat it again. Damnedest thing. Nerdy as heck, but there you go. Makes you wonder if anomalies like that occur all the time, but are too mundane to be noticed by us. We were doing some set decorating in an old abandoned hospital for a feature film we were shooting. Me and the second AC were walking through the building's upper floors. Most of the hallway emergency exit doors at the end of each hallway were locked, so you had to walk back to the main elevator or stairwell, although the rooms were open. We were looking for air conditioning units left behind since it was getting really warm. At the end of one of the hallways in the long-term patient care wing, we distinctly heard keys jingling on a chain that could have had a million other keys on it. I stopped my friend and asked him if those were his keys, and we both checked our pockets, but had definitely left everything of ours on the main floor of our set. Suddenly we heard a door at the end of the hall swing shut and a loud bang reverberated through the empty corridor. We checked every room and found nothing, not even air conditioning units. I'm pretty sure my house has a friendly ghost in it. When we first moved in, the chimney would randomly blow in soot when there was no fire or wind. We got an infestation of bugs that no one could identify, and other assorted weird crap. Now it's mostly settled down, but lights will occasionally shut off after I've left a room. My dog will bark at air, doors are left open will be closed, and vice versa. I think they're just living peacefully alongside us, sharing the house. I consider them invisible friends. When I was a teenager, my house used to occasionally do weird things. It has since stopped, but every once in a while it would act up. The most unusual thing that occurred happened when my mom and I were standing in the kitchen. The door to my room was open nearby, but nobody was inside. While we were talking, all of a sudden a piece of jewelry came flying out of my room and skirted along the floor. To this day we have no idea how that happened. Ironically, neither one of us was freaked out about it. We were sorting some boxes in the living room of my old house before moving out. We had brought our new puppy, who was very docile and a bit clingy. She was at my feet the entire time we were there. So, it was just me, my mom, my brother, and the puppy sitting in a circle going through boxes, and no one got up during this time. We were only there about 30 minutes. As we were finishing up and getting ready to leave, I noticed the dog was missing. The house was a basic ranch layout, open living room and kitchen, dining room, long hallway with 2 bedrooms and a master and a bathroom, so she couldn't have gone far. We searched the entire house for the dog and could not find her. We searched every room at least 3 times and all 3 of us were calling for her. There was no barking, whimpering, scratching, nothing. On our 3rd round in the master, my brother just desperately opened up the walk-in closet and out comes my dog, shaking and with her ears down. We left quickly after that because that door opens out into the room. Someone would have had to have coaxed the dog into the empty closet and then closed the door behind her or pulled it closed from the inside. There were no vents near the door and the heating and air had been shut off for months. Strange things occurred in that house while we lived there and intensified as we were moving out, so I don't know really what to chalk it up to. You have been visited by the Pete's of sleepiness. Good dreams and rest will come to you, but only if you comment sleep tight. Pizza. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.